All right, Christian Baxter, you're up next. Boy, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it through this speed random. My heart is just getting pulled all over the place. But you have you have made your way into the corner, and I think what part of what you have done is exemplified. There are a lot of people who, I want to get into the corner by getting a Randos conversation, and that makes me a bottleneck because I can only have so many. And you basically made your way in here, and you've shared your story on your channel. You started a channel, so let's do a little Rando stuff because your story is on your channel a little bit.
Yeah.
Tell me about the home you were raised in.
I was raised in a mostly in the very rural country in Arkansas, and a town of 350 people. Went to a public school of like 300. The whole town is a school, county. But I was.
Oh, you're breaking up in and out. Yeah, the bane of speed randos is going to be technical issues.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, even better. Much better.
Oh.
Can you hear me? I hear you.
Dang it.
No, I hear you.
I can't hear you.
Oh, well, that's a problem. Oh, the technical glitch.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you fine. Can you hear me? Oh, still can't hear me.
Dang it. All right, I'm going to come back in this.
Uh-oh. Off he goes. Now I have to fill airtime. Where's my branding? Oh man. I've really got to steal some branding from, I got some favorite branding. I was thinking this morning that, Grim Grizz always gives these savings throws against mind control. And the most mind control thing he does is the branding. All right. Christian's back. So
yeah,
grew up little town, Arkansas.
Yeah, I was born in Fort Worth and moved to Nashville when I was 5, lived there for 2 years. So I got a little bit of this urban thing, and my mom was always she was raised in Nashville, trying to keep a little bit of sophistication in the household. She didn't like the word ain't. But my dad was raised on the farm that we moved to. So we were surrounded by 400 acres. We didn't have much, but we had a ton of land. And so that was my, world. And, grew up, birthday parties were 4-wheelers and, everybody hunted, but I was this weird kid who liked sci-fi and fantasy and read, but I didn't feel like I could express that in my context because nobody else really understood it that well. And that really ties into coming into this space ultimately, is that part of me. Why things like Pagaeu's had such deep meaning, your synthesis of ideas and theology. So.
Okay. So you eventually became a worship pastor.
Yeah. I was about 16 and I had I call it a mystical experience now, like a call. I share about it in my one of my videos, and it wasn't something I wanted to do. My dad was also had done some lay bivocational and some full-time ministry. Grandparents had been in ministry. I wasn't really wanting that with my life. It wasn't a fun ministry as it existed. Wasn't fun to me, in a way. It was in the culture that I was in, but this whole modern Christian music thing was bubbling up around that time, and I had a lot of attraction to that, and that's where I kind of was like, oh, well, this is what I want to do. That's how I feel connected to this world. And so even at 17, I grew up in a town that was like 10 minutes from a town of about 15,000. And so there was like a new church, very young, a very small church that was trying to bring that in. And they were like, I was one of 2 people in the whole town that did that stuff at 17.
Yep.
They had me come in. And a big part of my story is that I'm so young, but here I am like trying to like lead people, but I didn't know how to deal. There was always this theme of hiding things in my life, like hiding how I really felt about science-y, imaginary, fantastical things. And then even secrets about, just lusty things that, and the guilt and all that. And so I'm like going to lead adults on a Sunday morning, it's a group of 10 or 12 people, but I didn't know how to like reconcile the hiding part of me, but also wanting to do this for God part of me.
Yeah. And
that just like, that remained part of my life. I went to college. I got a degree in biblical studies. I wanted to take, like, I wasn't interested in like historical music. I wanted to understand how to take like understanding of the Bible and mix that with what was going on in the culture. And so I got a ministry degree, but I was still just doing like a lot of the music. And then, got married to my high school sweetheart, which is another big part of the story because she was raised Lutheran Missouri Synod. Her mom was raised Catholic. She was Catholic till she was 5. And this is my wife's uncle is an archbishop in the Catholic Church. Her aunts are nuns. One of her aunts broke her vows and became Greek Orthodox. And so Thanksgiving, when I started going to Thanksgiving at my girlfriend's house, I'm a Baptist kid. And this was like, what is this place? And so I get married and I start having conversations with my in-laws about liturgy and about paedo-baptism and about why these things hold meaning to them. And here I am, still just like strumming along. And then in 2012, our church, I got on staff at a church in 2008 and then went full time. It was actually the church that I served at when I was in high school. And then I went to college and kind of stopped and then came back and I was doing itinerant stuff, camps and and I need to apologize to everyone for interrupting the last episode, but I actually spent a summer in Sonora doing a camp up in the mountains from where she was from.
Yeah.
And so I did ministry that, did camps in Florida and then all over. But I was always in my hometown, coming back to this same church, this kind of eclectic, had a little bit of care for like the historical. And in 2012, we hired a Presbyterian pastor. And he was like, hey, do you want to bring in some like actual liturgy into these contemporary services? And I was like, yeah, I'm right there. I'm like, I was primed for it in so many ways because of this relationship that I had with my in-laws and trusting their faith and their life and their example and how these things held a certain kind of meaning that I was trying to understand. So incorporated that in, go back to the part where I was a hider and I was hiding this part of my life and it ended up destroying me. So I had this love, for ministry, for the church, for worship. But what I loved about the last conversation was it Audrey? Who was on the last Alexandra, sorry. When she said it's the she said chasing healing. Like I did not know how to heal. I didn't know how to, and a big part of my convictions is like confession, this office of confession, the sacrament of confession versus admitting to God that you're a sinner. There's this huge gap. And in Christian Protestantism, it's like, well, I've admitted that I'm a sinner, but there's not really, that's all that you're responsible for. But that doesn't heal you. That doesn't heal you as a human. It might heal you in some form of soteriology, but it doesn't heal you as a person. And so, I broke the trust of my marriage and the trust of the church that I was serving and the trust of my community. and I lost my reputation, my job, my career, everything I'd been doing since I was about 15, 16 years old. I was about 31. And so that's where I met Jordan Peterson, and that's where I met you. and that's why it's like my heart was racing to get on here. And we've talked on Twitter a little bit and different things, but like, you're not Jesus, and you know that. But there's a reality to the woman who was sick, who wanted to reach out and touch Christ.
Yeah.
And so to meet you, Paul, like this digital way is reaching out and touching a world that existed in my head for about 6 or 7 years, you know.
I get that.
That's what this is. And yeah, and I'm watching the other videos and stuff, and you know, my marriage was reconciled, families were reconciled, we were reconciled back to the church, and then over time, my career was rebuilt. Music was healed in my heart because it had broken, and then I'm kind of in this stage now where there's ministry starting to kind of be rehealed after 7 years.
Getting professional ministry is it's a particularly it gets you into spaces that can mess up your own faith and your own discipleship. And you know, your story, I've obviously known others with similar stories, and there's sort of a completeness to professional ministry. And so then when you don't, it really incentivizes the hiding. And because everyone has to put on a mask to do something. If you're working at an airport and you're working for the airline, and the airline has just, messed up, a few thousand people's travel itineraries, and the customer service person puts on a mask. Oh, can I help you? And they've had people screaming at them all day. They got to keep wearing that mask. In ministry, you keep wearing a mask. It isn't incidental that, and you look at, say, Native American religion, a lot of them has to do with masks.
Oh yeah.
And in, especially I think in some evangelical places in this last chapter of culture, where authenticity has this value. So then you start putting on a weird mask of authenticity, which just accelerates the dualism, and it's a really difficult thing. And so but I'm really glad that, it sounds like you had a tough bump, but the story wasn't terminal.
Yeah, it was a major car wreck, and I'm still healing. I love what she said on the last video, like the journey of healing. Like, this is another step of healing. I'm not none of us are ultimately healed, but
no, not in this world.
Yeah.
Not in this world. Well, we have limited time. So, tell me how your interaction with this little corner, because you've certainly made an effort to get in, how that has been a part of your healing. Because, when all of these debates over sort of what's happening, that we kind of put this little corner as a label on top of it because we don't really know quite what to call it. But I do get the sense that for many people, this is a space of healing, and this is a part of their healing. So talk to me about how this was a part of healing for you. So
for one, you're a pastor. And by the way, your podcast with Based Camp, you were so lucid. I saw Tim Keller instead of with Charles Taylor, Tim Keller with Jordan Peterson, instead of like normal embodied church, the digital church, man, you're going to have, when you finally hang up the collar, so to speak, I just want to encourage you. I just think you obviously have had lots of opportunities, but like, you're going to take like that conversation, you'll be able to take that and keep going. But this corner, so for one, you're a pastor first. And I even heard you talk about on that podcast, like your motives for staying where you're at and your commitments to that. And you talk about going slow, even at the end of the last rando you just did. And I'm in a situation with that now, but this going slow. So you as a pastor, I hear pastor things. I spent time as a pastor. I hear pastor things. That's how it was like, oh, there's Jordan Peterson, psychologist, and I can take there. But then for you, it was the pastor thing that made so much sense to me. I was watching debates and listening to apologetics, and I've read Lewis and all these things as a younger man when you were doing that your whole life as well. So that engagement, it's like 8 years of 7 years of input. This is the way I can explain it. It's like, yet like all these people spread out over the United States and spread out over the world they've been in university inside of their heads for 5, 6, 7 years. And it's like, okay, you can't just stay there. It's gonna come out. This is I patron saint Jordan Peterson. This is the seeds planted, and this is the harvest is starting to come out.
Yeah.
That's my experience with this.
Well, and it takes time. And, mentioning Keller, because before I did what I did with Jordan Peterson, I did what I did with Keller. And, I see CW's in there, and he says, he's right that I still should make a video on my experience with Keller. Part of it is, one of the things, as we talked about before, you get used to as a pastor is wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And when you're on YouTube, you also have to wear a mask, because, and I can tell, even with you presenting your story, you have to be really careful, because your wife didn't, sign up for YouTube, and children. And so you still have to wear a mask. And so, I actually visited Tim Keller in 2006, but when I visited him, I hadn't yet done the deep dive. And it was about 3 months after that I did a huge dive into Keller, and I spent about 6 years listening to 2-3 hours of Tim Keller a day. So I did the Jordan Peterson thing with Tim Keller before there was Peterson.
Yeah.
And so Peterson wasn't my first dive. And and so Peterson's been interesting too. But then, of course, YouTube is a whole different thing, and that changed everything. Oh, we got 1 more minute. So do you have anything? I don't have that nice. I should take that. Do you have anything else that you want to say?
I want to say thanks. Thank you for, just making yourself available. You still are looking how making your not trying to ascend the status hierarchy too quickly. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Christian. And the name of your YouTube channel is Christian Baxter _UT. So if you want to find Christian, he's making videos. He's making a lot of videos. He's making a good number of videos. They're very transparent. They're very authentic. They're very him. It's been, that's right, upcycle. Now for something from the Freddie. You upcycle, great idea. That's where I'm going to do my branding. Freddie would love it. So thank you, Christian, so much for coming on. And next is